The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, we're back. The Boyce'S returns. It is the Monday Club. As ever, on a Monday Club, I am joined by the other Boyce. Jonathan Boyce, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Not too bad at all. Managed to pull me away from the telly just to get on this bus and miss a bit of the darts, but I'm loving it. I'm all for it.
I know, mate. I know the darts are on. And do you know what? There was a bit of me tempted today as well to like reschedule or whatever, but I thought it's been too long. We've been away so long. We've not seen any of our happy faces in 4 or 5. It's not like 5 days, which is a record. Don't you worry. We'll be full of content coming up over the next few weeks, months, years. Why not? Anyway, very good evening to you all. And obviously, first and foremost, a massive happy new year to all of the Boyce bus passengers, drivers, whatever it is you'll want to call yourself. I'm all for it. Comments are flying in with the good vibes, and I love that. And there's a comment from Brian Cattigan, who I've now featured on my wee bottom ticking banner now, advertising, obviously, Brian's behind the theme song. You know, the single is called Can't Be That One You Want. Easy for me to say. And that obviously gets everyone in a good mood when the Boyce bus is revving up. So, yes, you can search for him on Spotify, and I put a wee mention for him in the banner. I thought it was only right, Jonathan, you know.
It's a cracking song, Russell. Absolutely.
It is a cracking song, mate. It is a cracking song. You know it. Anyway, I hope everyone's had a good new year. I hope everyone got drunk, or if they don't drink, they got fat. And, you know, all the best for 2022. And it's an exciting year ahead for the Boyce bus. I think it's got to be said that we do have plans to do more shows. I don't want to run before I can walk, but I also want to make sure that if there's wee gaps where I think that could be a wee bit of decent content, that we fill them. So an old idea of mine, Jonathan, that you'll be aware of the title of, is going to come into play from February. I will need a sign made, like a logo made. If anyone wants to offer to do that, that'd be lovely. If not, I'll get someone to do it. It's fine. And the concept will be more like a sort of, try and make it like a radio show. But a lot of you in the comments have been talking about, when I was on the other pod, they liked my music input when we were doing music shows, the music input. So I might have a wee bit of a feel of that. And then I might always do things through a Celtic prism, but I might do a show where we generalise the chat about the league that Celtic are in. Everything from a Celtic perspective, if you like. So I'm not trying to become Rob McLean. You know what I mean? But we'll try and maybe broaden the topic points of, and chew the fat more on Scottish football. And I'm also thinking that on that show, we'll play a couple of tracks at the start and the end of unsigned acts. I'm giving too much away already. But yes, that'll be February. So that is the future plan. But January, we're going to get this awful winter break out the window. It's never good, is it? No one likes missing the football. And we are missing the football right now, but we'll do our best to keep you entertained in the meantime. And in 2 days' time, I am back doing the Championship Manager, Jonathan, as well. That stream, the last one we did, had 1.1 thousand views. So if there's an appetite for it, I'm more than happy to do it. It's my favourite game ever.
20 years you've been working on that Celtic team, Russell. You'll be well versed on who to sign and who not to sign. Has Taribo West joined yet? No?
Taribo West has joined, yeah. I think he joined. I can't remember. But yeah, it got like 1,100 views. So I was like, well, we'll keep doing that. And on Wednesday, we'll mark 1 month since we started this crazy bus journey that we're on. And in that time, I think we've got now 1,100 subscribers as well. So credit to you all. We do appreciate you all tuning in and watching, and a very happy new year. That's my opening segment. Anything you'd like to add to that, Jonathan?
I think you've covered pretty much everything. This bus seems to be going in a multitude of directions over the next few months. I'm sure we'll have a blast and look forward to it.
You will notice as well, I'm drinking water now as well. Jeez, a new year, a new me. Don't worry, I'm not becoming like a total boa, but for the foreseeable, I'm going to drink some water on show. In fact, just in general, if I wanted to have a beer, I would have one on the show with you all, of course. Let's get to it then, and let's start talking Celtic. What do you talk about during the winter break? Do we do a half-term review? I think it's been covered on the radio and various other pods, I'm sure. I thought, we'll skip all that shite. Let's talk about the signings that have came in, Jonathan. And whilst I'm talking about drinking water, make mine a treble. The worst-kept secret in transfer history is out there. Celtic have completed the signing of Maeda, Ideguchi and Hatate. The fans do seem buzzing, and shows the faith of the support. That's why they're so excited by these signings, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it touches back on what we said the other week, that we have to trust Ange and his abilities when it comes to looking into these markets to find the right players. And it's a very encouraging start to what promises to be a very exciting window, I think, for Celtic as well, because there does seem as if there could be further activity to follow when you're looking at the reports today. But all in all, I can't think anyone could be unhappy with the signing of three players from the J-League, considering the effect Kyogo's had on the team.
No, totally. And I think this shows that the love-in, the buy-in, whatever you want to call it with Postecoglou, has peaked already for me. I'm not saying that peak is ever going to go in a negative trajectory anytime soon either. I think, though, right now, everyone's buzzing about 3 players they know very little about. Now, we've discussed how players can all look good on the highlights reel and stuff like that. And obviously, that's what these highlights reels are compiled to do. I mean, I know Pato was only joking with this comment. Obviously, the average height will come down, though, naturally. From what I've seen of all 3, neither of them look like they're big units at all. Obviously, like we've talked about before, we do need to play the fixture at times, and it can't always be, Ange ball. I know that term got a wee bit overused. But you know what I mean? Like, we can't be always fast flowing. Sometimes you need to mix it a bit. And hopefully we'll see a couple of other additions that will do that. We'll touch on future additions in a bit. One thing I did want to bring up, right? Now, this shows to me how much Ange is very much God right now at Celtic, and what he says goes, and he doesn't really get questioned for much. I'm not questioning these signings in the slightest, by the way. But just in a parallel universe, if you flip it slightly, right? Imagine Ange was only given an £850,000 player, a loan signing who would only cost 1.7 million in the summer, and another player costing between 1 and 2 million. We'd be quite underwhelmed, I think, in normal situations. Is that fair, Jonathan? That we've got such a faith in Postecoglou's player judgment, his eye for a player, whatever you want to call it. We've got such faith in it, and that includes me, by the way. I'm all for these signings. But isn't it mad if you just imagine they weren't 3 players from that league and that was all we did in January, say, for example, or that was the opening 3 signings when we're 6 points behind in a league title, you would be underwhelmed in normal circumstances. But under Ange Postecoglou, these are not normal times.
No, it's a very good point to actually make, is that the outlay's minimal. Really, it's, if you were going to go on the board's back, you could easily turn around and say it's penny pinching. Again, like I think a lot of people may well have done if it hadn't been for not just the Ange ball effect, but I think because of the fact Kyogo has just taken off completely since he's came in and blown everyone away, and he's quickly became the most indispensable player in the first team squad, is it's got the fans excited, believing how many more of these gems is there in that particular league, because it's not a league I don't believe Celtic have really looked at previously in terms of signing someone directly from the J League. So all points towards optimism, but I would take your point that normally you would turn around and think, crikey, this is only a couple of £1 million. This is, typical Celtic board, just trying to do things on the cheap. But it does look as if Ange has also not only got the faith of the fans, but I think he's actually also got the faith of the board, because I highly doubt that we are actually finished in this window with just these 3 signings.
No, and we're going to touch on that. We're going to explore what areas of the squad we would all, including everyone in the Monday Club, would like to see, strengthened. We're going to also look at potential individual players that have been linked, including obviously the Jota story. We're going to touch on that as well. And then that's why your man Dan Olowich isn't happy. He thinks the players have moved on for a cheap price. I'll be honest, that Dan guy has never impressed me in any of the podcasts he's been on. I think he just talks shite, right? That's just the way, it's that simple. This is the guy that told us, be prepared. I was going to do his accent there, but I didn't want to be too nasty on him. I didn't want him phoning me up and bullying me or that, you know what I mean? But he was like, yeah, he's going to rather draw 4-4 than win 1-0. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And I think we've seen by the number of 1-0 or goals by a 1 goal difference that we've won this season that Ange very much is here to take 3 points and not 4-all draws. I think he knows what club he's at and he knows the importance. But yeah, obviously Dan knows more about the players than us. And if he thinks that the players are going for a really decent price, then fair enough. I mean, to a point. But didn't use him as a reference, Lanky. I'm telling you, you're better than that. That was my wee Chris Sutton impression there. Pete McKinley says, rocked up. This is talking about Eddie Gucci. Rocked up with a belter of a perm and told us all to call him Gucci. What a boy. I mean, Eddie Gucci and Maeda. I mean, Jonathan, I don't know. I mean, you're pushing 30. I'm 34. I don't know, man. Like, those boys look a lot older than both 24 years old. What sort of paper round think they had?
Oh, I don't know. That man, he looks like he could have been in like the Last Samurai. He's like one of those really old veterans.
Aye.
He looks ancient. It's hard to really believe because they're fairly young. They're all mid-20s. I'm thinking I'm 5 years older than these people. The world's gone mad.
There's a couple of other angles coming in, Jonathan. Now, obviously, the one that John Coletta, and welcome along, John Coletta. I don't recognise your name normally, so welcome on board, mate. He's saying about the actual rule. Now, there will be one hell of an earthquake in the SPFL of, like, you know what I mean? Like, it'll go mad if we were to say we've got more than 3 players and it delayed. Do you know what I mean? If it delayed like the Glasgow Derby again, I think it would be like, you know, right now we're sitting in a situation where there already is madness going on over a 3-week break just being brought forward. Do you know what I mean? That's all it was a 3-week break brought forward that was always going to happen. And, you know, everyone's bumping their gums, whatever about it. If Celtic were to have, you know, if the 4 players were called up and they were to end up pushing that game or petitioning to have that game pushed back, you know, it would go nuts in the league. Is that something though that Celtic you feel would be entitled to do and would take up if it did come to that? And is this also going to be a reason why we've got now over the 3 international players of the same country? Because imagine if you only had 2 or 3, you or two getting called up, and they were the two key players. Is this almost safeguarding us from these sort of call-ups, or are we just reading a wee bit too much into it too early?
I don't know if they've done it. It's very, very well planned out. If it's a case they've signed all three of them in the hopes to strengthen their case to postpone the Rangers game. Well, I would say going on to the rules as well. The rules are there, so if Celtic want to try and take advantage of that rule, particularly if you're looking at potentially being without 3 or 4 of your first-name players, then they were within their rights to do so, I would say. It's not really Celtic's fault that the SPFL have decided to rearrange the Rangers game for when there's World Cup qualifiers going on in Asia at the end of the day. So,
True.
I wouldn't turn around and be altogether surprised if Celtic decided to move it. I mean, if they did, I would imagine that the fallout will be astronomical from the other side of Glasgow and their supporters. But at the end of the day, Celtic will look after themselves, and if the rules are there and you've got that opportunity, then I don't see why you wouldn't ask for that game to be postponed when you're potentially going to be without 4 or 5 of your key players. And there is a precedent for it, because Rangers did do this a number of years ago in the lower leagues.
I agree with that, and I think as well, I mean, in the lower leagues as well, come on, guys. Were they worried? I mean, come on. In an era of being accused of shitting it, I suppose it would. That's why I think it would obviously, grow arms and legs. I also like to talk to you about the age of the players Celtic have signed this trio. Now, these aren't guys that are project signings. These are very much players that are ready to go in the first team, that are in their mid-20s, very much like Kyogo. I think, are they all 24? Someone can correct me.
25.
Maeda's definitely 24, apparently. You've got Ideguchi, who signed. I'm sure it said maybe he's 25 and Hatati's 24, something like that. But these are guys, Jonathan, that are getting signed very much now. Even since the summer, to be honest, we signed Liam Shaw as a project. They've not been expected to feature. We also signed guys like James McCarthy, Joe Hart in their 30s, ready to go straight in the first team. Juranovic, Starfelt, 26, ready to go in the first team. We're signing first team ready players. Do you think there's been a shift in the transfer outlook that the Celtic board have since Peter Lawwell's left?
I think there certainly seems to have been, looking at the last window, and certainly the way that this window has started as well. There is ultimately a lot riding on this league championship, with the prospect of going straight into the Champions League this year. So you've got to think that perhaps for one, Celtic are looking at it and thinking, if we can just get ourselves over the line and win this championship, then we get that windfall. And perhaps they are now looking at it and thinking, last season was an absolute horror show by all the accounts, and they're thinking this team needs a lot of revamping. So just get it sorted in this window and get the players in that are ready-made to do the job, and worry about the profits if and when you can make them further down the line. And maybe you won't make the profits on the players, but if you get the money for the Champions League income, then that will cover the costs of them anyway.
Well, even if the model still was, Jonathan, very much of we need to sell these guys on for profit, I can't think of any better way than by giving the manager a team that could win the league, qualify for the Champions League, see how they do there, and whatever is your outlay, then you're going to make a return on them if you were, push comes to shove, having to sell 1 or 2 of them at any point in time, because they're playing at a higher level. I think the model so far, from what I've seen now, albeit we're very early into January and a lot can change, it's the 3rd. I had to check that there. But when you're looking at summer, albeit it was haphazard because of the crazy short nature of time that Ange had to get in players, I was still encouraged by a lot of the signings. I felt, even if Ange wasn't responsible for some of them, I felt that we were trying to bring in players that were first team ready, more than just project, whatever, Project Lawwell, whatever you want to call it. And I also love the fact that we had players signed on the 31st of December this year, Jonathan. We announced it. The day before the window. It's usually the day after the window's shut. We got one over the line at midnight. Yeah. And I'm not exaggerating. We've seen that with Cameron Carter-Vickers there, albeit I've just praised that window. I think in other windows gone by, it just seemed there was no sort of structure to it, and it was all a bit lazy at times.
Yeah, it
And
definitely looked like it was certainly a case that they were just dragging their feet a lot in previous seasons, particularly the January windows.
Yep.
They don't tend to do an awful lot of business historically in the January
Yep.
window, Celtic, and even when they do, it's usually just loan signings, and it's sporadic loan signings that tend to just disappear after the 6 months. Not many of them tend to hang around. And beyond that, Roberts probably about one of the few exceptions in recent years that they've signed in January on a loan and then extended it again. And to be honest, I can't really think of the last time we actually signed somebody that really got the fans excited too much in January. So it does look as if they are taking a totally different approach this year. And I think it's a welcome one. I think the fans are actually now getting fully on board with this as well. Oh, there we go. We're getting the ages now.
Yeah, we're getting the ages now. Ideguchi is the one that's 25. I was right. I think I said that.
Never doubt yourself on birthdays.
Mark's going to talk about. Mark, nice to join you guys. Nice to have you with us, Mark. Firstly, don't worry, we're going to be talking about all of that towards the end of the show. We're going to start on a positive note, though, Mark, and we're going to keep talking about incomings that have arrived at Celtic, potential incomings that could arrive at the Celtic Park's gates as well. Bruce comes in, he says he can't watch tonight. We just want to say Happy New Year to you all. Hope everyone's safe and well. Let's hope for a better year this time round. Nice one, Bruce. We appreciate it, mate, as always. Douglas Hughes, I don't know if you've seen the Championship Manager stream midweek, Jonathan, but Douglas got banned by accident. I blocked him completely. I went to block someone called Mary or something like that who was from the other side of the divide, but you know what I mean, crossing that line. Now, I don't mind Rangers fans coming in. I've said that before. As if everyone wants to play fair, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It's really not my style. But Diggy, unfortunately, was positioned like, I better watch how I word that. Diggy's name appeared anyway when I was trying to block Mary's comment. And I've ended up blocking him completely, so you just had to watch the rest of the show in silence.
Oh, for goodness sake, Russell, you're going to need to offer an olive branch there. Maybe get one double or something. You're going to need to do something for the guy.
I did put an official apology on Twitter, but also said it led for great banter. Pato comes in and says we are all Douglas Hughes. It was a classic. Anyway, yeah, so I think we should be enthused on the signings. We'll wrap that one up there, Jonathan, but I agree with you. I think we should be enthused about the signings that we made. I think they're the right age. They're clearly Ange signings, not the bold signings as well. Yeah. He knows that league better than anyone in the country. Why not back him to do it? They're also very, cost effective, shall we say, already. There's a low risk in terms of the outlay that we've spent. And maybe one of the reasons as well that makes them so attractive to Celtic is because we're hearing reports, obviously, right now, there is stories emerging that Jota, the deal is edging closer. Now, he would cost a fair whack for Celtic, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I've said this before, 6.5 million is not, it's a drop in the ocean if you want to be competing in the Champions League.
Yeah.
That's a sub player for a lot of the Champions League teams now. In fact, not even for a lot of them. From Celtic's point of view, it's a big outlay, especially in these unknown times. I can see a lot of the comments are talking about the potential capacity rules coming in. And again, it's such a negative thing that it might impact, again, financially on what we can do, what any team can do. Aberdeen, I've seen we're talking about, it's going to cost them 500,000, even just a month with no fixtures. So it'll be interesting to find out. But basically the Jonathan signing, the Jota signing. you wish the Jota signing.
I'm the next unveiler. Can you imagine? The board's transfer policy has gone out the window.
At least he's 29 years. He's first team ready. But yeah, the Jota one's edging closer. Apparently, he was over in Benfica. Their reserve managers now got first team duties. Apparently, he rated him, so there's a bit of a concern that he was back in Portugal. And obviously, with the option we've got with Jota, is if the player doesn't want to do it, though, that's it, null and void. It won't happen. He still has to sign, albeit we've got first option on him. So I had a wee bit of a concern that I'd seen he was back there, and the reserve manager's been promoted, who obviously rated him a bit. However, the stories seem to be now that actually we've got nothing to worry about, and he's actually looking more likely than ever, according to a publication in Portugal. So that is very encouraging for me. And obviously, with the small fees, like I'm saying, that were linked with the Japanese players. Maeda is only on loan till the summer, for example. Do you think Celtic should and could afford Jota now in January? And if he's available, and if he's willing, and we do have the funds, is it something you would do this second, Jonathan?
Yes, I think it makes absolute sense to just get this one done and over the line. We've seen plenty from Jota over the last 4 or 5 months to merit signing him permanently. 6.5 million is not a lot of money in global football terms whatsoever anymore. I think if there is potential that there could be other interested parties, then you don't want to end up losing out on him because you've dilly-dallied about in January and not asked the question to the player when you've got this agreed terms already in place. So for me, there's absolutely no brainer you would try and sign Jota. And what a statement it would make as well, by the way, if they were to actually go and sign him on a permanent in January to show that we are not messing about and we are determined to get our business done this time around in the January transfer window.
Yep. I think it's a brilliant point. And I think as well, I mean, you talk about statement signings. Sometimes I think fans try and be too clever. And I don't mean anyone on the bus. We're all the same wavelength, you know. But sometimes you can see this sort of almost snobbery and, oh, well, as long as the players, you know, gets the numbers, then, you know, these are guys. Sometimes football is a simple game. And the pendulum can swing, particularly in Scottish football, with statement signings like Jota. 6.5 million, middle of a pandemic, whilst everyone's flapping about money, and we go and just do that. And by bringing a deal 5 months early, it puts to bed any rumours. Celtic might be skint. I don't know why people are believing that, but it puts all that to bed, and also means that you've secured what has been one of the most electric players in the country on a long-term deal. That would excite me. And for me right now, players' minds can change, you know. Jota might come back in February to empty stadiums and blizzards and all that and go, actually, I don't fancy this anymore. So if he's shown a willing now, you get that deal rubber stamped and getting signed permanent basis.
He does look like he's enjoying his football as well, Jota. So it does, I mean, it's hard to obviously completely tell, but reading between the lines, it certainly looks like he's enjoying his time so far at Celtic. So I wouldn't think he would have any issue signing a deal at the moment. But obviously, the longer you leave it, particularly if he continues to play as well as he has in the second half of the season, the more interested parties you get, the more likely the player's head could be turned and he could end up elsewhere. So for me, it makes absolute sense to get this deal done now if the funds are there. It's a no-brainer, as one of the previous people, the comment was saying there.
Yeah. I agree with you, Jonathan, on that. I think he would definitely add, you know, I think it would add a real sense of excitement about the fans. It would show the club's going a completely different direction, you know, in the transfer market than what it's been doing for years. And finally, when we've got a manager that we all rate, he's going to get back to a level that we all want. And that would be encouraging to see, you know. I think, as I've said before on this, time will end up looking favourably on Brendan Rodgers, you know, and I don't just mean the trophies, but even for his reasons leaving, you know, you might still get called a rat by some at this point in time. But I think a lot of opinions are beginning to shift when you think about how much the goalposts were moved for him, you know, to get players in it he wanted, considering what he'd achieved. You know, you consider what Postecoglou, for example, right now has achieved very little so far. Obviously, he's not had time to yet, right? But yet we would all go, sign Jota at 6.5 million, sign another 3 guys for the J League this month if you can. We all would.
Yeah,
we all felt like that with Rodgers, and yet you couldn't even get a John McGinn, for example. I don't want to go on about all that because I've heard it a million times, but it does kind of make you think, you know, is there a wee shift in attitude here from Celtic? Are we ready to play ball again? And that should excite fans, because when Celtic take things seriously, as we all know, Celtic can become the dominant force in Scotland 100%, but how long it would last again? Rodgers seemed to turn the tide for 2 years and then it sort of disappeared again for another 4 years after that. But fingers crossed, this is a sign of the times a changing. Just having a wee look at. All it takes is his agent to be in his ear telling him to hold off, as there may be other clubs interested. Ferguson said it decades ago about that agents will ruin the game. Well, that's all well and true, Pete McGinley. I think it's hard to disagree with that. I suppose Jota, those probably had a couple of loan spells already and is maybe thinking, well, maybe a permanent move here wouldn't be the worst thing. I've seen that other players, even if it was about an agent trying to get fees, there's no better way to get a fee than leave Celtic for the Premier League rather than leaving Benfica reserves for 6.5. If the agent wants a big fee, come do a couple of years with Celtic, try and get in the Champions League, leave us for an 8-figure fee, and it'll be a far bigger chunk the agent will get, and his reputation enhanced as well.
And it's a blueprint as well, Russell, because it's been shown before that it can be done, and there are plenty of historic cases of that. So I think an agent, I don't think should be too much in his ear at this point, unless there was serious interest from one of the major leagues. But I don't think anyone will be looking that closely at Jota quite yet. So I think the ball is firmly in Celtic's court to make that deal happen at the moment.
Yeah, and Daniel MC is absolutely right. Now, this is where you get the two sides to it, because albeit, Rodgers couldn't get a player over 3 million. I think the only time he did was at Edward, because I think Sinky was just under 3 million. I can't think of anyone else. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Daniel's right.
Cham, I think he was maybe 4.
Oh, in Cham, I think he was 4.5. Aye, fair enough. But I mean, yeah, considering the money he was bringing into the club, it was outrageous. It was crazy. But the one thing that you would have to say that the board have been slightly acutely aware of is, yes, we're backing Ange, but they're not backing Ange with huge fees for players. We've not spent crazy money on players as of yet. But if the Jota one was to get over the line, then you would think, things are happening. Monty's ringing off a few of the players he missed out on. Rodgers, Castagne, of course, Piccini. Frightening, Absolutely frightening.
Could have some team if Rodgers had been given a fair crack at it. It could have been a ridiculously strong team, and it's understandable why he ended up deciding to jump ship to Leicester the more you look at it. Yeah,
Hit Sensors comes in with a really smart point. He says, Champions League, dream on. You're going to get kicked out of all three European leagues in one season. Well, that would mean the Champions League was one of them, Hit Sensors. So I'm not quite sure where you're coming from with that one. And I'm not sure if you're aware that if you win the league, it's automatic qualification at the Champions League. And at this point in time, there's only 6 points in it. So thank you for your contribution, Hit Sensors. But I wouldn't get too ahead of yourself just yet. It's a long window. And obviously there's a lot of points to play for. I mean, as for saying you've been kicked out of three European leagues in one season, one of them would need to be the Champions League, Hit Sensors. So it's not that unrealistic a tournament to be in. I'm not quite sure what team you support, but let me know whoever the team is you support. The last time they were in the Champions League, that'd be lovely. In comes Feed the Bear. Oh dear, not sure what he's talking about. No, we only do that on the Championship Manager stream. He thinks I'm cheating when I'm doing the dates of birthday players in the CMO 102 stream.
He's insane with it, Monty.
No,
that would be his specialist subject on Mastermind.
It would. I've applied for Mastermind before and they never got back to me. Genuinely. Right, what will we talk about next? So let's not stop there though. Even if it is Jota to be added next, and I think if he used to be the fourth signing announced, we would be absolutely buzzing. Right, we've covered that. Now, if it's a long month, like I was just explaining to our old Hit Sensors there. Now, where else does Ange want to target in the squad? And where would you like to see Celtic? So it's a double-edged question I'm asking. Where do you see Ange wanting to identify the squad strengthening? Because we know he's got different, sometimes, principles to how football should be played than a lot of us, not in a bad way. And where would you like to see the squad strengthened? Over to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, well, I think he's certainly looking for another playmaker, by the looks of things, when he's looking at his options, and I think probably some competition much needed for Rogic in that number 10 role, because Rogic's, whilst he's a fantastic player, he always kind of struggles a little bit, I feel, with his fitness, always has. Turnbull hasn't exactly hit the heather on fire so much this season as he did previously. So I think another body in there would be what Ange will possibly be looking at. I'm not entirely sure where else he'll be potentially looking at getting somebody else in. I think he might look to get a few of the other ones off the bill in the midfield now that he's got the 3 Japanese guys in, and then it'll be a case of really taking it from there. He's obviously looking at Jota on the permanent, as we've discussed, and then you also have Carter Vickers, who could potentially become a permanent, which I think he will need a centre-half if he wasn't to sign Carter Vickers, and he maybe will need another one, as we actually touched upon last week, and we discussed the possibility of a John Souttar potentially coming in.
Yeah. I think, for me, right now, I think we're looking at the right-hand side winger, albeit unless Maeda's been brought in to sort of cover both. I think another centre-back I would certainly sign. I think the holding midfield role does seem a heck of a lot stronger now. I'm a lot more confident. I wonder if the Ideguchi sign has been brought in because Cal McGregor's now going to get pushed up one and start competing more with the likes of Turnbull, Rogic in that area. And I think Ange will see enough in Callum McGregor that he'll think, do you know what, you might be more effective further forward, albeit he's outstanding in that deeper role. We all know Callum McGregor's our most consistent midfielder by a country mile.
Yeah.
But I'd be quite intrigued to see whether the Ideguchi signing is actually so McGregor now becomes more of an option to compete with Turnbull, Rogic, and obviously Hatate, who we understand that's his favourite position, albeit he can play left back, up front, the lot. In terms of other areas, I think a backup goalie, Jonathan, is a necessity. I've got no faith going forward for the second half of the season. If and touch wood, that something to happen to Joe Hart, you know, I would be very concerned that Scott Bain would be next in line. I understand Barkas is likely to be loaned out this month. That's what we've read. I mean, he wouldn't be missed, and I wouldn't have any faith even if he was staying, to be completely honest to you. So it'll be very interesting to see whether we bring in a backup goalie. What do you make of that suggestion?
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely if something was to happen to Scott Bain, it's not Scott Bain, Joe Hart, then we would be stuck with Scott Bain, who has failed to impress for the last year or so as a minimum. Barkas, I would agree with you, it would look like he's headed for the exit doors now that experiment is well and truly over. So if something was to happen to Joe Hart, you'd be extremely concerned with the backup options. Having said that, though, Scott Bain might well benefit to flip it from the fact that the back four, I think, is actually a lot more settled now than it has been previously, in the sense that, I think there's development of partnerships possibly coming in there with Carter Vickers. I know Starfelt's, the jury's still very much out on him. Would I trust Scott Bain behind them? Probably not, but you never know. Maybe within the defence beginning to shape, they have kept a lot of clean sheets this season, Celtic, which has been as a defensive unit, not just down to Joe Hart in goals.
Yeah.
Then there is that possibility that might breed a bit more confidence into Bain, that he feels he's got that bit of protection in front of him. But I would be inclined to agree that if a goalkeeper was to become available at a reasonable price, then Celtic should be looking at it. With the benefit of hindsight, they probably should never have got rid of Craig Gordon, if we're being completely honest, because he'd have been perfect candidate to have been your backup goalkeeper. Would have probably been number one last season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Frank Brenz came in with a point there. He's looking for a box-to-box midfielder. My hunch is that is going to be the role Hatate has been brought in to do. But also, I know there's some bickering going on in the comments. I don't mind as long as it's still above board. Like I say, I will be going through every comment after the show now just to make sure. It's a boring task, but someone's got to do it. Monty comes in. Seagrass or Xander Clark. To me, I would go for either of them. I think I've been fairly impressed, I would have to say, Monty, with them both. Both know the league, know adapting. We've spoke about that before being quite a handy thing with some signings, especially when you're bringing in a lot from another continent. I would be quite keen to see, either one of those two brought in. I would feel a lot safer one of them as our backup, and hopefully trying to push Joe Hart as well, because Joe Hart right now, for all his professionalism, seems like it cannot be questioned or ever doubted. You would have to say as well, though, I mean, he knows he's going to be playing every single time. There's no one putting any sort of pressure on his jersey at all. So, yeah, I would think Seagrass or Xander Clark, if you can pry them away from their clubs, which shouldn't be too hard to convince. Obviously, coming in as a number 2 initially to fight for the number 1 jersey, I think that would be really, really good.
Xander Clark also brings the experience of having won a couple of cups as well, which also is a big thing too. So, yeah, definitely if the deal could be done, then it's there for Celtic to look at those options potentially as well. But I would imagine probably getting a backup goalkeeper won't be as high up the list of priorities as strengthening other areas that Ange has specified. But if there's an option,
it would be for me. It would be for me. Like, I think honestly, you can have injuries happen. Do you know what I mean? They can happen. Liam Cole's got another suggestion, David Marshall. I mean, I think if we could get him, we were talking about this midweek. I think, if you could get him in a free transfer, I think the last I've seen anyway, he was third choice at Derby County. So, I mean, why not? Over 100 watching live on the Monday Club. If you are enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I don't care who you support. Just hit the subscribe button. Do us a favour. If you're chipping in the comments, you can chip in with a subscribe. I'm shite at all this. I know other folk have it all laid out and a wee button appears on the screen and all that. I don't think the bus is ever going to get that advanced, mate. I'm not going to lie to you. Paul Cockwell's is a name that we've spoke about on numerous occasions. That Martin Boyle. Paul's obviously a Hibs fan. He's a regular contributor on the show in the comments, and he's saying that if it goes, it gives if he wants to go and give Hibs the money now basically, and gives Sean Maloney obviously a full transfer window to try and help.
Be an interesting one with Boyle as well, because I think they're talking $3 million for him. So again, the board can be quite stingy historically when it comes to dealing with other clubs in the league. So it would be interesting to see if that's somebody that Ange has identified that he wants, whether or not the board would be willing to back him. When previously, I feel the board have always tried to play a little bit of football transfer managers themselves, and you don't want that happening in a league where they might feel they know actually a little bit about the players. The J League, they have to fully trust Ange. They don't watch it. They've never seen it. But with somebody like a Boyle, who they do see every week, they may turn around and think, hang on, that doesn't seem a wise investment of £3 million. We're not going to give you the money. And no matter how much Ange wants it, if the board don't buy in, he's not going to get him.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. Now, on to potential departures. We're reading today as well. Shaw, Urhoghide, Henderson, all linked with moves. The first two looking like loan moves. The third one, potentially permanent to Hibs as his contract's coming to an end. This albeit he scored a winning goal against Real Betis only a matter of weeks ago, Jonathan. What do you make of the three players being linked with moves? And is it a sign that we will indeed actually be strengthening further?
Well, it does seem like we'll be strengthening further when you're looking at the players going out. I actually feel a bit sorry for Ewan Henderson. I think he's always looked pretty tidy whenever he's been given a chance. I thought when he burst onto the scene, I think Rodgers gave him his first game. He looked as if there could have been a player there. I thought he looked pretty good when he played against Betis. I don't really feel he's been given many opportunities this season compared to some of the other youngsters that are kicking about. With the other two, it probably makes sense to let them go on loan, particularly if further reinforcements are coming in, because let's face it, their chances of actually playing are going to be very limited unless we end up in another injury crisis. Although, having said that, I think I've read somewhere we could end up playing a remarkable number of games if we end up getting through the first Conference League knockout game in a few weeks. And I think we're looking at, I think it's like 18 games or something in 8 weeks, something ridiculous like that. So it would certainly help to have players available that are going to be able to fill in. But I would expect that the board are planning to strengthen further, and Ange is planning to strengthen further, which is why these guys can go out on loan.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think the Henderson ones, it is tricky with that one because we've just not seen enough to justify it. Although, what I would say is he made his debut, was it under Rodgers? Then you've had Lennon there, not that Lennon probably looked at much of the youth. And then you've had Ange there, though, for 6 months in what was a depleted squad, and he couldn't get really near it, albeit until the Real Betis game. I wonder if it might be best for his interests. I think he's 21 now, just to to take stock, look at the career his brothers had by playing at Hibs on loan and then going abroad, and think, do you know what? I might be able to do something similar myself. And I seen Paul McFarlane was in earlier. Always a big hello to you, Paul. And he was suggesting that what about as a make-weight for a Martin Boyle sort of sign? Now, Martin Boyle's a signing that would excite me. I know it's not a glamorous name. I don't care about all that sometimes, to contradict everything I was saying about statement signing. But for every statement signing, you should have one that's, ready to hit the ground running as well and affordable. Boyle's making noises. He's not happy at Hibs. That'll drive down his fee. If you can add a player in there on loan initially and then they can sign permanently or whatever for free, that's going to drive down the fee. I think it makes sense. It's not just for 2 goals against you-know-who. I think that would be folly if we were signing players on that basis. That just makes, that certainly doesn't cut it for me. It's got to be more than that. As for Shaw's actually looked all right to me. I think Shaw's looked all right. And I thought Urhoghide, you were on and we spoke about you. He actually impressed you the most in that European game. You'd said Urhoghide. And I thought he looked raw, but I thought he came on leaps and bounds from the guy I seen in pre-season matches for Celtic. I was really concerned at that point when I was watching him. Shaw's always looked like he's got a bit of composure. See if they're both going out on loan, Jonathan. Do you insist that they both go out on loan to SPFL sides?
I think in some ways it might make sense, so that they're getting a bit more familiar with the league, similar to the route they went down with Ryan Christie a couple of years ago. What I would say is that whatever route they decide to go down with these young players, is I think it's important that Ange probably still has some influence over what their sort of training plan and everything else is going to be, similar to what happened with Brendan when he sent Christie to Aberdeen, as I'm pretty sure Rodgers actually gave them the sort of plans that he wanted them to implement for Christie. And I think the fact that you've obviously mentioned Urhoghide and how far he's came on shows that Ange is obviously good at bringing young players through the ranks. And it may well be a case that you don't want them to end up going to another SPL club, learning a completely different way of playing from what Ange is wanting these players to be able to do, and then end up coming back and just end up wasting away in the stands until their contracts expire. So, yeah, I would say, yes, you could let them go to another club in the league, but I think Ange should still have a say into how their development plays out at whatever club they ended up.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a scope for, when you're looking at the SPFL, have we over the past few years loaned enough players to SPFL sides? I think probably not. And now you look at Hjelde, for example, loaned him to Ross County last year, and then he went to Leeds United. Now, I don't think we got a particularly big fee, but the fact is, he was more on the radar for a potential decent sale than what he would have been going down the leagues, like Luca Connell, for example, who I think he's in League One right now at Queen's Park. And you would think a guy that had made 18 appearances for Bolton's first team in the Championship would be playing at a better level than that two and a bit years after leaving them. I would like to see us use the SPFL more to loan out players and get them to grips with it. And I think Shaw and Urhoghide are prime candidates for that. The word is that there is an opportunity for them to perhaps be loaned out. And I think that's brilliant news for Celtic, and good news for the players as well. It can be difficult to adapt to the new league when you're getting a matter of a minute or two here and there, or the odd game here and there, in extreme circumstance. I would like to see them get a decent run. And, a few people agreeing that players don't have to be, that signings don't have to be sexy signings. Frank Brennan's also agreeing with Monty they don't have to be sexy signings because Barry Robson wasn't one. And he came and did a brilliant job. I agree with that. We all know that. Bob McBob says hamstrings can't handle Ange. Well, I think in a matter of time, though, Bob, the sports scientist's only been there for 2 months. Ange has been on a limited squad, as we've just spoke about. We're going to expand that squad. It's going to 100% get players from the J League more used to playing that type of football as well. And I think, it'd be naive to think that, professional footballers, once they've had 6 to 12 months under Postecoglou and his training methods, that they're all going to have hamstring injuries. Obviously, Postecoglou's had a 26-year managerial career. I've never read any report that there's a history of hamstrings, hamstring injuries left, right and centre. I did see a few trophies, but I've never seen any hamstring shouts. So I think it's a nice try, that one. But if I'm honest with you, I think that'll get ironed out just as the players adapt. And maybe he gets more of his coaching staff in as well to help. I think that'll definitely be, a key factor. Right, on to this hot topic that's doing my nutting. I mean, I couldn't care less about it, but obviously it'll get the odd controversial comment, I'm sure. And Twitter's been awash with it. It's been awash with this nonsense, Jonathan, the past 24 to 48 hours. Nathan Patterson's joining Everton, obviously from our rivals, right? Why is there such an angry debate online over the fee? And who cares? Now, here's my 2 slants on it. Here's my tuppence worth. We spoke, Jonathan, last week about how the window could be a window where Celtic strengthen the first team and Rangers weakens, because we knew they were going to need to sell at least one, right? That was a fact. Everyone knew it.
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, no matter whether the fee's 9 million up front, 12 million up front, 16 million up front, which might be a bit pie in the sky, but if some folk want to cling to that, fine. No matter what it was, they've got a substantial amount of money in to keep their going concern was X amount of million to the end of the season. That either puts that to bed or comes close to putting it to bed in one transfer, and that transfer doesn't weaken their first 11. That's it in a nutshell, right? There is no point in trying them gloating that, oh, he costs more than Edouard. We all know that's nonsense anyway, and we all know Edouard had 12 months left. Who cares? And from a Celtic persuasion, who cares what they're doing if they're selling guys off the bench? Let's focus on us. And I think what I've tried to do when we bring this into the debate is explain all the other points that are going on at Celtic right now and why they should be so prioritised over Twitter going nuts in debates about how much a Rangers player's been sold for, how much they cost. Get over it. I think we should be moving on from that. We've got so much to focus on at our side. And to the Rangers fans, I would say, stop gloating about selling one of your best players. It's not anything to gloat about either. The whole thing's nuts. And I feel that the one-upsmanship between one side of the divide to the other at times can get a wee bit tiresome. And I think this is a prime example. We're talking about how much a very good prospect player cost and trying to slag the other one off for the other. And I couldn't believe Twitter when I dared to say, Jonathan, am I the only one not bothered about this fee? That went like that was my busiest tweet of the year. I mean, I don't really understand it. What's your take on it, if any?
Well, we knew they were probably going to end up selling someone, so that's not really a surprise. In terms of the actual costs, Jan Vennegoor-Hessel. I do like Jan Vennegoor-Hessel, Mick. Thanks for the comparison. Get me up front for the hoops next week. But no, back to Nathan Patterson. It's a case that, yes, he has gone for quite a reasonable fee. I think everyone could see that. It's good business from Rangers' point of view because they weren't playing him, as you quite rightly say. But the issue from our point of view is it's not really something that Celtic have any control over, really. So Celtic should really be only focusing on what we can control and leave them to kind of deal with whatever transfer business they're going to deal with. It's going to happen anyway. And we just have to continually focus on bringing in the players that are going to improve our squad, getting rid of any of the players that we don't need, hopefully collecting good fees along the way. And you don't really give Nathan Patterson too much thought, I wouldn't suggest, because for me the whole thing is irrelevant because it's happening at a different club where the only real impact it's got is, as you say, it's given them that bit of financial injection. Now, if they were to use that money perhaps and go and strengthen their squad and then bring in somebody that we weren't expecting, then by all means that could have a knock-on effect. But I don't actually think that's what's going to happen here. So I believe it's all a bit pie in the sky, tit for tat, whatever you want to call it, that we don't need to really be engaging in.
I agree with that. I just thought, because it's become such a hot talking point. I mean, obviously, people are trying to become, the gloating side of it. Like selling any of your good players isn't something to gloat about. I remember being annoyed when we sold Kieran Tierney. But the flip side is, I don't get from our point of view why we're even engaging in. If people want to gloat about selling, one of their hottest prospects for not a big fee in English terms, but a big fee to them, I don't know what relevance it's got to go towards us. Anyway, I thought I'd cover it briefly because it has been a big talking point in the old Twitter sphere, Last but by no means least, as we do on every Monday, it is an open forum. I know there's been various comments coming in throughout the show that have not maybe been a wee bit off topic from what we were on about at the time, but it's always the last 10-15 minutes where we're going to just put it out to the forum. Let us know what is burning on your mind right now. I'll bring the comment up and I'll leave it to Jonathan to debate it. But yeah, this is where, anything I've not thought of can come in. It could come in quite handy, Jonathan. I mean, there's Scott House saying as well, he thinks that there's another player leaving Rangers. I mean, we'll find out as the season goes on. It will be very, very interesting, that aspect of it. I think as long as Celtic keep improving their squad, I'll be happy. Do you know what I mean? I think that's
what I was saying. Celtic need to just take care of their business and they can't worry too much about what's going on elsewhere. Obviously, if they were to lose somebody like Aribo, then that would clearly weaken their hand, but we can't really be focusing too much on that. We've got plenty of business of our own to take care of in January, and that's what we should be focusing on.
Hit Sensors wants to know about Celtic's financial position. So, as far as I'm aware, Celtic, have a strong credit line from a bank if they need it. But right now, they're a club firmly, whilst obviously there was operating losses in a COVID year, still had to include into that the selling fees, the transfer fees they sold both Edouard, Christie and Ayer for. I think that totals combined, if you believe what you see, about £30 million. I'll be honest, I don't see any great risk to Celtic's financial position at this point. I think that tit-for-tat argument is really strange. Celtic's books are all there. They don't delay releasing their accounts either. When their accounts come out, it's not, at midnight on a Friday because it's bad news. It's out there in the open, and Celtic were always going to operate, losses last year. I think Celtic were the only club in the SPFL not to require a loan from the SFA. Is that right as well? I think one club took 3.2 million.
They were the only ones who didn't take a COVID loan.
Only one. So we actually, and I think it was meant to be, 1.6 you could get, but we actually allowed another team to use the 1.6 we freed up by not using it. So hopefully that clears that one up a wee bit for you, Hit. Monty wants to know if Prince Andrew can sweat. Well, Prince Andrew, I bet you is sweating right now. I tell you that. I bet he looked at that first bead coming down his forehead and thought, where did that come from? He's
sweating right now. He'll be watching the Boyce'S thinking, oh
no. Daniel MC, they're talking about the co-op, the shop. I think it's obviously some sort of dig at a bank. I'm not quite sure where that's all going. I'm really baffled at anyone who thinks Celtic are in debt or going to be struggling for money. It's not the case. I don't think. I'm not an accountant, but
pretty much summed up by what you've seen at the start of your video.
Nonsense. Looking forward to a fully fit squad, says John. Well, 100%. The fully fit squad combined with the new signings that are already there is an exciting prospect. And haven't we missed the likes of Jota? Of course we have. I was looking at his record so far at Celtic, Jonathan, since he joined. 19 games, 8 goals, 6 assists. I mean, that's good reading, isn't it? I mean, over the course for a normal season, say he made 45 starts, you start multiplying that, that's going to be a 15 to 20 goal season. And a 10, maybe even a 10 to 15, if not maybe even 15 assists. What a contribution that would be if you got that. It's massive, isn't it?
Huge, absolutely incredible if we were to get those sort of figures from him.
Yeah, I mean that's James Forrest territory, and I think obviously there's concerns. There's concerns at James Forrest's fitness.
Right now. Yeah, it seems to be taking a bit of a dive, doesn't it? Forrest has just not really been able to get going back again, which is a shame because Forrest fit and firing could be an absolute difference maker on this one. That's Joe saying.
Oh, I don't know what Joe's on about, man. He's talking about Mrs. Brown's boys. Philip DeMarco, finally, he wants to know, where did you steal the shoes that you had on at New Year? The old leopard print bad boys, mate.
I'm only joking.
No, yeah, the leopard print shoes. It's always been a thing of mine, Philip DeMarco. Always been a thing of mine. Anyway, that's nearly been an hour. And what a successful Monday club it's been. There's been over 100 watching. Certainly for most of that. Back Wednesday for the month anniversary of the Boyce'S. Thank you all. But yeah, that'll be good fun. We'll do some CM 0102 and then we'll be back. I don't know if his name's escaping me now. God, I am terrible at this. But basically, we're going to be doing the Double Doon show again. That comes back this weekend, Jonathan. You'll be glad to know that, of course.
Oh yeah, I'll be watching with interest that show. Hopefully,
it's Liam Colo. And Liam Colo, who's in the comments, he's suggesting he's coming on either Friday or Saturday. Still not told me confirmed which one yet. Liam Colo. So remember that with Double Doon. If you want to come on, drop me a DM on Twitter. My address is going through the wee banner at the bottom. Drop me a wee DM and you can get on the Double Doon show either on a Friday or a Saturday night, whatever one suits you best. I'll try and accommodate you. Loads of folk coming in saying it was a great show. Monty wants a daily show. Well, mate, it's not easy to do that, but I will try my best. There will be plans afoot to try and get on the airwaves more. It just might be a slightly different time sometimes, Monty, but I will do my best to get you a daily dose of the Boyce'S Bus as soon as I possibly can. It's not easy doing this on top of your day job. Cheers, boys, says Douglas Hughes back in the house. You know it, mate. And Monty, just before we go, Harry Cool, date of birth, 1978. On that note, I will leave you all. Good night, Jonathan. Thank you so much for your contributions and being on the Boyce'S Bus. It has been the